Higher Seed ready to rock and roll. Blood Crypt's going to end the battlefield untapped here for Eric Gray. This is the deck that does have plenty of 1-drops, of course, so you have to imagine Eric has one of them. And he does. It's a Monastery Swiftspear, a card you know very well.
You know, for as popular as this deck was coming into the tournament, during the tournament, I believe this is my first round covering it.
It's true. It's true.
And it's the deck I played the most prepping for this event also.
Here is a Duress. Take a look at the hand here of a Mountain of Sulphurous Springs. There's a Monstrous Rage and a Titan Strength among these cards. Claim to Fame as well. I think a hand you're going to keep a high percentage of the time, right?
Right. So from this position, if you have a Fatal Push in your hand, pretty straightforward here that you take, in my opinion, pretty straightforward. You take Claim Fame and then kill a Swiftspear, leave with nothing. If you had to play through the Swiftspear, it gets quite a bit more complicated. Monstrous Rage is the best card in terms of absolute rate. But the Scry on Titan Strength can't be ignored, especially with Gray already being a little land heavy. Whatever is selected here is going to give you a lot of information about Connor's hand. Because remember, something like Torch the Tower, you don't want to get into a fight with spells on the stack against a deck like Rakdos Aggro.
Yeah.
If you have clean removal like Fatal Push, you don't have to worry about it. But if you're going to pick a fight with a red damage dealing spell, better to do it now than wait until the stack gets congested.
Connor has given things a little bit of a think here, and now this is going to be the Torture Tower that you did mention and taking care of the Swiftspear right away.
Cannot, maybe that's something where at FNM, you're just trying to trap your opponent a little bit, maybe try to get a Titan Strength on the upkeep. Players of this caliber, it's better not to mess around.
And this is a copy of Callous Sellsword for Eric Gray. So I'm going to head back Connor's way. And Connor's just going to pass the turn back with no land to play. 2-mana 2/2 is the Human Soldier. Burn Together is the aspect of that card that we see get cast quite a bit in this deck. It's not really about the body, but the body can obviously work itself into the equation as it has this game.
Yep, it's more of a fail mode than something you're trying to do, but, your deck's got so many pump spells in it, you can't afford to be too choosy sometimes about what creature you're going to have.
Here comes the Sellsword for 2. That 2 will connect. So Mackenzie's down to 17, and, well, that's notable. There's not a lot going on here for Eric Gray. Just going to add Jagantha to the hand.
Well, maybe. Showing a lot of respect here for Connor, keeping 2 mana up. The Jagantha could be useful if the game goes on for a long time. Of all the builds of Rakdos, it's the least impactful against Transmogrify because they're going so far over the top. If you're playing against more of the mid-range builds, decks that are all about Fatal Pushes removal, Jagantha could be quite good. But I think Eric's position here is if Connor has no removal, eventually he's going to have to commit something with his mana, and then you have an opportunity to play some of these pump spells. 2 mana up is very different than 1 mana up.
A Reckoner Bankbuster here for Connor Mackenzie. And a land as well, passing the turn back. That signals to me that, there's a removal spell here. And wouldn't surprise me if it's a Fatal Push. And there it is.
Yep.
So that was an attempt there from Eric on the upkeep to be able to get a Scry via the Titan Strength, and that got blown up badly by that Fatal Push. A dead giveaway there, right? Because last turn Connor didn't hit a land drop, and then the following turn he plays a land, plays the Bankbuster, and still has a mana available.
Yes.
So was not willing to allow himself to get punked out, as you like to say, by a big turn from the Rakdos aggro deck.
Now, even if it was kind of face up there, if Eric had drawn the second copy of Claim Fame, I don't mind it. There's some chance maybe Connor top deck the Bankbuster, but even if there's a Fatal Push in that spot, you get it back, you're able to play Fame, deal a ton of damage.
We're going to head back Mackenzie's way now. Going to tap 3 mana. Looks like this is going to be a copy of Fable the Mirror Breaker, so the Goblin Shaman will join the battlefield as well. And a very quick passing of the turn from Mackenzie back over to Gray.
And the shields are down. And remember, we know about Monstrous Rage already, which means that even blocking with the Goblin Shaman is not going to be sufficient if Eric's hand is rolled up. We're probably just Burn Together away from lethal this turn. But if not, even if you deal a lot of damage, it's possible that Connor just gets a lot coming on the way back.
Yep.
Potentially threatening Atraxa, with a lot of stuff to sacrifice, the ability to get to a fourth land.
And Gray surveying the options right now. Remember, we know there's a copy of Jagantha in hand, but this matchup isn't really about that. It was free to add to the hand, yes, but again, not really what this matchup is about. So we know about a Monstrous Rage that's in hand right now for Eric Gray, and of course Connor knows that as well from an earlier discard spell. But past that, it seems as though some of this information may be hidden. So, for Eric, it's time for a Heartfire Hero. And let's see what the follow-up is going to be after the Mouse Soldier.
Yeah, we got a Fame here for +2/+0 and haste.
Valiant Trigger as well to give that hero a +1/+1 counter.
So you got to start doing some math here if you're Connor. Are you committed to a block? So you have 2, 4, 6 damage on the table right now. The most threatening thing in this spot, as always, is Burn Together. That looks like another 8, so it is potentially threatening lethal. On the other hand, you know about Monstrous Rage.
Sure.
So any block here is not really saving you that much damage. So you can kind of take this one of two ways. I'm going to protect myself from Burn Together and block whatever. The other is say, no blocks, take it all on the chin, leave myself with the Goblin Shaman, and a lot of opportunity to find Atraxa next turn depending on what the hand looks like.
Well, there's the Monstrous Rage. And a Monster Roll token is attached now to the little mouse. So a lot of damage coming on through here. You see the counting that's taking place. I think you said it was 8 initially.
It was
6 initially, and then plus the 3 here from the Monstrous Rage.
Right.
So it should be 9 all day.
Yes.
13 minus 9 by my math is 4.
3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9.
It looks like Connor's going to take that damage. Fall down to 4. Looks it might be 3. We'll make sure we confirm our life totals with our table spotter.
And Connor just needs to go for broke here, trying to find Transmogrify.
We confirm 18-3 is correct right now. So, there's a Bankbuster activation.
Really good news for Eric.
Yeah, it sure is, isn't it? Yeah, and that's going to do it there. So Eric Gray's going to win game number 1 here over Connor Mackenzie. Rakdos Aggro dispatches Rakdos Transmogrify rather quickly. That's what it's got to look like there for Eric Gray to be able to move on to the finals of this particular match. The Jagantha didn't work itself into the equation, but the rest of the deck did, and that's why our player on the left is up a game.
I had some success and some failure with Claim Fame, but there is no question that if you are talking about the Thoughtseize Fatal Push matchups, that card is a star, and it was excellent there for Eric at game 1.
Well, we're going to start by going over Eric Gray's sideboard here. We'll read it to you aloud to the class. We got 4 copies of Thoughtseize, 3 Fatal Push, 2 Rampaging Ferocidon, 2 Unlicensed Hearse, a Feed the Swarm, Hazaret the Fervent, a Jangantha the Wellspring, and an Ob Nixilis the Adversary.
So there's 2 approaches here. One is, what are the cards that are good against Connor? And then the second is, let's just assume that Connor has more interaction. Can I turn my deck into something a little bit more normal? Less of this all-in pump spell plus fling experience. In terms of cards that are good on the fundamentals, there really aren't a ton here. I think the Thoughtseizes are okay. I think Rampaging Ferocidon is fine in this kind of matchup. You can certainly justify Fatal Push. So it is really just a question of, does Eric want to keep the deck intact, playing against presumably more removal post-board, or does he want to prepare himself for a grindier game, in which case bringing in just normal Magic cards like Thoughtseize Push, Ferocidon, possibly even something like Ob Nixilis could make sense.
Other side of things here for Connor Mackenzie. It's 2 Duress, 2 Go Blank. Oh boy, 2 Hidetsugu Consumes All. That's a very good one in this matchup. 2 Unlicensed Hearse, 2 Urbrass Forge, 5 1-ofs and an Abrade, a Dampening Sphere, an Extinction Event, an Ob Nixilis the Adversary, and a Jangantha of his own.
Hidetsu Consumes All is really strong in this matchup.
Yes.
A ton of one-cost permanents, and in addition, exiling the graveyard is a nice little bonus against a deck that's playing with Claim Fame. Two Duresses, also easy to justify. Plenty of spells over there. The Abrade, it's not the most powerful removal spell, but it's over the line. Again, to me, this is a question of where are you making space? There are really not a lot of easy cuts in this deck to make room. I think you could argue the Bank Buster, maybe Case of the Stash Skeleton. Those are kind of flex cards. They're not good against Eric's deck, and they aren't critical to the functionality of the deck. But again, how much space do you really have at the end of the day?
Well, both players are in the sideboard, and they'll be shuffling up here for game number 2 in just a moment. While they work on that, we, of course, do want to communicate with you exactly what the players are playing for here this weekend. We talked about a little bit at the top there that players are, in this particular round, looking to qualify for the World Championship next year. But, as we can see, players that did come out to D.C. at this SCG Con, they played for a lot of money in this event.
Yeah. Cash prizes all the way down to 128. And Pro Tour invitations all the way down to top 64. As you start going up, you see the prizes scale up here. You see World Championship invitations start to be part of the mix. And so in the top 4, these players have already secured $8,000 a Pro Tour invitation and a Regional Championship invitation. Waiting for them if they get through this round is an invite to the World Championship along with $10,000 and a shot at 20.
Not a bad weekend's work, huh?
And I know this is not true for you. I know that you have, but one of the things that I never got to do as a competitive Magic player is compete at the World Championships.
Yeah.
And it's quite the honor. It's a really cool tournament. Obviously, the prizes are huge, and that's quite the cherry on top of the weekend for the players who are able to advance to the finals here.
It absolutely is. The next Magic the Gathering World Championship is taking place just a couple weeks from now at MagicCon Las Vegas, a sold-out show by Wizards of the Coast. So if you're looking to see a World Championship in action, you'll be able to see that in just a couple of weeks. But we'll also be seeing one next year, and one of these players will be qualifying for it. A very memorable moment for them in their Magic careers, and an accomplishment that not many can say they've done.
Well, I've never qualified for a World Championship, and I've never won $20,000 in one tournament.
Okay. Well, there you go. And you've won some tournaments in your day.
I've come in second in a lot of tournaments in my day. I don't know about one. But in any event, as far as a notch in the belt goes, I have nothing that compares to winning one of these. And I'm sick. I'm so nasty, and I've been playing forever.
Yeah, that's right. Nasty Pat, that's what they call you. Here's a Thoughtseize off of a Black Cleave Cliffs as both players very quickly keep their 7 cards. Monastery Swift Spear, Monstrous Rage among the cards in hand here for Eric Gray.
So, if you are still on the Callous Sellsword, suggest to me that Eric sideboarded pretty light. My experience is once you start setting out the pump spells in an effort to become more of a regular deck, you kind of have to cut the Sellsword. It's just another moving part that kind of doesn't work. So I'm expecting Eric to have had a light touch here.
A Blood Crypt enters the battlefield tap there for Eric Gray. We head back Connor Mackenzie's way, who will play another copy of Thoughtseize. So you see the hand there, Blood Crypt, Remnant Ruins amongst those cards.
Looks like a sideboarded Feed the Swarm has come in here.
And the Sellsword is going to bite the dust from the discard spell. Another copy of Black Cleave Cliffs. And we're going to head back over to Eric Gray, who's picked up one of your favorite cards, your first time casting it on the weekend.
Game.
Yep, something like that. Something like that.
Good luck, buddy. Have you seen this thing?
I have seen Kamanu Faces Kakazan, and it is a very good card, but so is that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, so is Fable of the Mirror Breaker. So the Red Sagas are pretty good in Magic right now in the Pioneer format.
And Thoughtseize has a reputation as not being good against aggressive decks. I do think that's a little bit overstated. Some truth to it. But against Rakdos aggro, exceptional. Their hands are already going to be starting off being a little lopsided. And anything that you can do to exacerbate it, sometimes you're going to end up with a non-functional hand. And that's kind of where Eric is right now.
Feed the Swarm is going to take care of that Fable Mirror Breaker. So just a Goblin token left behind. Well, that's part of the reason that this Fable Mirror Breaker is such a powerful card. And now here comes the Goblin Shaman. Treasure on the way as well, of course. Jingotha will be
Ooh.
added to the grip. We're not far. I mean, we're not far away
No,
from.
we're
from
there
that elemental
now.
elk. Yeah, that's right.
We got a treasure.
That's right.
Atraxa, don't need it.
Mm-mm.
However, Atraxa, now we're casting.
That's true.
Oh, yeah.
That's true.
Slide through the back door. Doesn't come up a lot, but when it does, it is satisfying.
Etching of Kumano now on the battlefield is a 2/2.
I tried to animate a Den of the Bugbear with it once. Doesn't work that way.
No, well, you tried though.
Yeah.
This is the effort.
It's like just send in the bug report to Moto. It's
Yeah.
like, don't let me do this.
Yeah. Looks like Jingotha going to be added to Eric Gray's hand as well. So
Some dueling banjos here in the American South.
that's right. We could have an elk off. Not oftentimes seen, but what better time than the semifinals of the regional championship where you're trying to qualify for Worlds? Let's see how Mackenzie wants to navigate this turn. As you mentioned, and as we've seen, Jingotha is an option for lands plus treasure, so it's easy enough. That's the fail case here for Connor, but curious to see what else is going on in hand.
And it's a pretty safe spot when you're on the other side of this kind of matchup. You're always doing the calculation about what's the likelihood of getting killed. Etchings is a very strong card, but doesn't have prowess and doesn't have trample on its own.
Mm-hmm.
So as far as the threatening lethal out of nowhere sort of sequences go, it's one of the more modest threats. It is possible here that Connor is actually rolled up and could transmogrify right now and wants to check sideboard to see how much hard removal is available.
Looks like it's just going to be Jingotha now. And notably, unless I'm missing something, no attack there.
Well, the reason for no attack is if Connor thinks I cannot lose if I get to my next turn, then you just want to be able to double block.
Okay. Just keep it safe. Better safe than sorry is what Connor Mackenzie says. So, Mackenzie has gotten to his next turn.
It's a very conservative play. Surely there is value in the treasure. But it is a sign of strength here, in my opinion, from Connor, to say, I don't even need to attack here with the shaman. I can wait a minute on that.
Quick check-in on our backup match for those of you who are rooting for either Corey Lack or Paul Yeem. They are still grinding it out in game number 1. We expect that one to be a pretty long matchup. And we're certainly working ourselves into a pretty unique and long game here as there's another copy of Monastery Swiftspear. Back over to Connor Mackenzie we're going to go. Doesn't feel as though Eric Gray's hand is all that strong at this stage. Both players just kind of staring at one another as they accumulate a battlefield of creatures. Now, there is one creature that reigns supreme over them all if it does show up, and that is, of course, Atraxa.
Yes. And a holding pattern is really good for Connor because, first of all, he just draws to more cards that are lights out. And a lot of Eric's draws are pump spells where if Connor is able to draw removal in the intervening turns, those draws become 2-for-1s, not just removal spells.
Well, that was an attack with that Goblin Shaman, and it got through. And now here is a little case.
Yeah.
Some solving to do.
The spooky skeleton.
That's right. Case of the stashed skeleton has shown up. The spooky skeleton, huh?
All right. So you get a 2-1 that can't block. You solve the case.
It's been suspected.
Right.
of a crime.
You solve the case by getting rid of your tokens, and then you can demonic tutor once you've solved the case.
Mm-hmm. There's an Urborg. Haven't seen that one on coverage in a long time. Always makes it for some memorable moments. Up, there we go. Hidetsugu Consumes All has arrived.
Womp womp.
Yep, that one's a powerful one.
Yeah.
Swift Spear. And Etchings of Kumano down, along with the skeleton, which means
Oh, yeah.
the case has been solved. Some very nice sequencing here. Now there is Sokenzen making a couple of tokens on the end step.
Overpaid.
True, legendary.
It's okay.
That's okay.
It's okay.
It's okay. It only costs 3.
But
good call.
when I've channeled that thing for 3, I feel like I've unlocked an achievement.
Yeah, sure.
Has it ever mattered? No.
Not once.
Not the point.
Not once. Let's see what the follow-up is here from Gray, who's starting to fall a little bit behind this game, it feels like.
Yeah, once you're in the spot where you're kind of behind on the table, it's very hard to catch up. Because, again, just going draw step to draw step is very hard. Unless.
Well, no time like the present. Here come the beatdowns. So Emberheart Challenger, couple of tokens from Sokenzen, Gigantha, sideways on this highway. Here comes Mutavault. Looking to do some blocking. Mutavault's going to jump in front of the token. Gigantha is going to jump in front of its counterpart. And it looks like Eric Gray has at least one way to interact. Okay, well, there's a copy of Monstrous Rage.
So Eric Gray is going to get the card off the top regardless. That part of this cannot fizzle, even if Connor kills the challenger in response. The risk that you have here is, like, let's say you have something like Torch the Tower. If you're letting these prowess triggers resolve, you can get to a point where that card can no longer work or get played over the top of.
So the Monstrous Rage is going to resolve.
And I like
the Valiant will resolve and the Prowess will resolve. Go ahead.
I like this from Eric, starting off with the challenger, because assume that resolves, or even if it doesn't against one card in hand, the way that Connor's blocked, you can say, okay, I'm fine. I'm happy to move on with my business. If Connor can play back at you at this point, it's an enormous risk depending on what the last card is in your hand.
Well, here's another copy of Monstrous Rage. That one's going to go on the token.
And it's an interesting hedge here from Eric, because the most obvious thing to do here would just to say, yeah, of course you Monstrous Rage Shigata. It plays over the top. Eric's saying that these blocks look good enough to me, and they're suspicious enough that if you want to let this damage go, that's fine, but I'm not going to let you blow me out by having something happen in response to the Gigantha that's being blocked.
So there is the Torch, the Tower, to take care of the token. Giganthas are going to trade off with one another. And now, the final play of the turn, it looks like here for Eric Gray, is going to be a copy of Heartfire Hero.
And, you know, at the end of the day, you can look at what Eric did here and say, well, if you knew what Connor's hand was, you could have been a lot more aggressive with those pump spells.
Mm-hmm.
Not knowing exactly what's there, every step of the way, Eric says, this looks good enough. I'm not going to risk any more than what I'm putting into this until you show me something.
Connor's going to solve the case. And unsurprisingly, he's reaching for Transmogrify. With the Mutavault on the battlefield, there is a creature to sacrifice and turn that land into something that is much better than a 2-2. So, Mutavault will activate itself. Transmogrify will take care of the Mutavault, and here comes Atraxa. And Eric Gray seems a little resigned to his fate. As you'll see, plenty of cards get turned over during this transmogrify. Less removal spells, bevy of lands, and Reckoner Bankbuster among the cards. Eventually, an Atraxa will be staring back at both Eric and Connor. We'll see Connor shuffle up his deck from the transmogrify's resolution, and then the Atraxa will, of course, trigger.
So we've already seen the one copy of Feed the Swarm. That's been cast. That would be the one kind of hard answer that Eric has to Atraxa.
Mm-hmm.
Potentially could still race here if he has brought in and draws Rampaging Ferocidon.
Okay.
Because it shuts down the lifelink and it has Menace, so it's not like you're block. You can just block with the Atraxa or
No,
what have you.
That's fair. Let's take a look at this Atraxa trigger first. Thoughtseize among these cards. A couple of Blood Crypts. Looks like a Torch the Tower. Let's make it 2 of those. Ob Nixilis as well. So let's see what Mackenzie wants to grab out of this. Looks like Ob Nixilis, a Duress, Torch the Tower, a Blood Crypt, and I think a Fable of the Mirror Breaker. And we'll shuffle those other cards, and those will be headed to the bottom of the deck if memory serves. And that'll take care of that. So, Eric Gray. So he gets to make another relevant play. It is worth noting that Mackenzie has not played a land for the turn. So there's a Blood Crypt untapped down to 4. All right.
And the Blood Crypt here untapped, it looks a little odd on the surface, but it is possible for, with the right mixture of Ancestral Angers into a Burn Together, that you can get killed from that spot. So if you have a removal spell up, it's actually better to take the 2 and protect yourself from that.
And that's exactly what Connor Mackenzie was able to do. So, Eric Gray, Connor Mackenzie, they are all tied up. Rakdos Agros and Rakdos Transmogrify going to be getting ready here for game number 3. Now, if you're Eric Gray, one thing worth noting here, partner, is he was able to break serve and win game number 1 on the draw. So that means being on the play for game number 3 with his hyper-aggressive aggro deck.
And I'm curious to see, I mean, my position here, I think that if I was playing Eric's deck, would just say same 60. I think the best shot that Eric had is not trying to interact with stuff like Feed the Swarm and just pedal to the metal, probably take a couple risks here and there, try to kill Connor either in front of Atraxa or force Connor to do it on turn 4 and kill on the way back.
Well, we'll take a look at the sideboards once again here very quickly. For Gray, again, going to be on the play. 4 Thoughtseize, 3 Push, Ferocidons, and Hearse. There's 2 of those. A Feed the Swarm, Hazoret, Shingatha, and Ob Nixilis. Shingatha has been way too involved in these games. So I think that if you are Eric, as you kind of mentioned, you obviously want to keep your deck low to the ground and still being able to do what you want to do and what your deck is built to do, so you probably don't want to change too much.
The problem with Thoughtseize is Connor's got him too. So if we play this game where we strip resources out of both of our hands, let's imagine this. Both players mulligan to 5. Who do you think is the favorite? Probably Connor, because Eric needs a lot of moving parts, and it takes very little for Connor to produce, if not lethal, at least an overwhelming board state. I do think that Ferocidon here has moments of being good. It is not great against Torch the Tower, which is an issue, but it is a way of sort of splitting the difference of saying, I'm still aggressive, but this does give me some shot, assuming that Connor has to tap out to play Atraxa, of dealing damage, shutting off the lifelink. I have a Menace threat that can attack through it that turn. It is very good on that specific window. It's not necessarily good in the matchup in general, but it does have one high leverage moment.
For Mackenzie, it's those 2 Duress, 2 Goblank, 2 Hidetsugu who consumes all. We just saw one of those get played in the last game. Remember, there's one of those main deck here for Connor this week, and along with the 2 in the sideboard. So you have to imagine those are coming in. That's the obvious one. 2 Urbrask Forge, and a Braid, a Damping Sphere, Extinction Event, aforementioned Shingatha, and another copy of Ob Nixilis, the Adversary.
Yep, and like I said before, I think you can kind of justify a lot of this stuff on the edges, except for Hidetsu consumes all, which you definitely want to have in this matchup. Duress, a Braid, Extinction Event, they're all good, not great, and it's just an issue of if Connor thinks the cards in the main deck are better or worse.
Well, those are the options there for both players. They're shuffling and presenting, so we're going to very quickly go over the Magic Spotlight Series that is taking place at SCG Con Atlanta early next year.
Star City Games is honored to host the first Magic Spotlight. This is a new rollout from Wizards Organized Play starting in 2025. The key features include it is an open tournament. You do not have to qualify. There is $50,000 in cash prizes and numerous Pro Tour invites. The first one here in Atlanta, January 3rd through 5th, will highlight Foundations, the release coming out in November that will be standard legal for 5 years. Again, you can find more information over at starcgames.com/SEGCon. Hashtag is SEG Atlanta. And if you can't make the event, you can follow on a variety of streaming services, most notably Twitch, over at the Star City Games channel.
All righty, let's do it to it. Game number 3. Eric Gray on your left, Connor Mackenzie on your right, Rakdos Aggro on the play. That's exactly where it wants to be. It'll be a Den of the Bugbear to kick things off here. And what red 1-drop will it be? Well, it's your favorite there, partner.
It's the best one-on-one.
It sure is. Kumanu faces Kakazan is here to stay. We'll see what Connor wants to do on his first turn. It looks like he's going to fall down to 18 via the Blood Crypt. And now here's a copy of Duress. Monstrous Rage among the options. And actually, it's going to be 17 because I can't forget that Saga deals the damage to start the game.
He does it all.
Sure does.
And Eric is thrilled this is not a Thoughtseize.
Yeah,
because,
I'll tell you.
You know, you're down. Although I guess with this hand and Claim Fame, it wouldn't really. Nope, no black mana. Never mind. Really important that it's Duress here and not Thoughtseize.
So the Duress is looking at a hand of Monstrous Rage, Claim Fame, Thoughtseize. Those are the options. The Raminap Ruins, of course, you can't take. You can't take that Emberheart Challenger as well.
I think all these cards are of roughly equal value when you just take the castable one. On red, I would be hard-pressed not to take the Monstrous Rage.
Let's see what Mackenzie wants to do. A difficult decision, it appears, for our Rakdos Transmogrify player, as he will take a look at his hand before ultimately making a decision with the powerful discard spell.
Really nice hand here for Eric, setting aside the lack of black mana. Multiple threats. The fact that you have a 2-drop means you have less exposure to Hidetsu Consumes All than you typically do.
Looks like Connor's gonna take, and Eric is gonna lose the copy of Thoughtseize. So we'll see if this comes back, to hurt Mackenzie. What that selection is, the Saga is gonna tick on up to Chapter 2. There's the Raminap Ruins. Here comes, predictably, the Emberheart Challenger. It'll get a counter, and there's an attack there for
3. Now let's try to investigate a little bit about what that Thoughtseize means. You know for sure that the Emberheart Challenger is getting cast on turn 2 no matter what the draw step is.
Sure.
So you are concerned about the Thoughtseize 2 turns from now. If that's the case, then it almost certainly has to be a 3-drop or a 4-drop you're concerned about protecting. So Fable would make sense. Transmogrify would also make sense.
So would Hidetsu's Heezy Wuzzies.
Uh,
If you know you have a Braid for the 2,
It's a lot. That's still pretty speculative.
Sure.
Right? Because what is Eric going to follow up with more 1s? The Consumes All tagging only the etchings it's okay. It's a little medium.
Yep.
I don't know if that justifies, duressing the Thoughtseize versus the Monstrous Rage when this is going to be a lot of damage.
No argument here, and you said it's going to be a lot of damage, and it certainly is. So I'm going to do all the counting with the Swift Spear and the Monstrous Rage. The roll, all that stuff.
Should be 7 damage.
Yeah, that's no joke.
And still no black mana from Eric, so we're going to see, again, if this comes back to bite Connor a little bit.
That's Fable of the Mirror Breaker. And there is a Goblin Shaman token. we're gonna confirm our life totals here real quick to make sure that everything is correct as these players do continue.
Yeah, it looks like Connor on their board looks like they got 8, falling to 7 here from the Kamano.
Mm-hmm. So just making sure everything is good, especially with a match of this importance taking place.
We have 2 damage. We have 2 damage here from the untapped Blood Crypt on 1. 2 Kamano triggers on Chapter 1. The Swiss Spear hit, you know, I'm not going to do all of it. 7 looks about right to me. If the players have 7, I would trust it.
Yeah, it looks like the players actually didn't account for the damage because they were so far into the zone.
Yeah.
And it looks like we're confirmed 19-7. Let's make it 2. How's 2 sound? I guess Chapter 2 sounds pretty good too. Eric's start, very good. Still no black mana, but still operating just fine. That Monstrous Rage was better than Lightning Bolt.
But yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's 5 damage, right? 1, 2, 3. The Swiss Spear trigger is 4. The pump the following turn is 5. To say nothing of it complicating the blocks.
Mm-hmm. Well, there's an attack for 2. This would be a really good time to, I suppose, have Tedesco consumes all, right?
That would be good. A Transmogrify could be nice here.
Yeah, that's
Doesn't
true.
lock the game up by any means, but
It would be nice. All right, it is nice. There it is.
critically also that Connor gets to keep a treasure token up here.
I was about to say the same thing.
They could find a 1-mana piece of interaction in all of this.
There's a Traxa. Let's see how this goes.
So let's talk about this from Eric's spot. Let's assume no 1-mana removal. Callous Sellsword, that's an out. Weirdly enough, if it's in the deck, Fatal Push is an out because you can push the thing that Atraxa blocks.
Yep. Need black mana, though.
Right. And we know the last card in hand is the Claim Fame.
Yep. A land is no good. Not enough mana to activate.
Feed the Swarm would do it.
No black mana.
Feed the Swarm doesn't do it.
Yep.
Yeah, I guess absent black mana, you're kind of just looking at Callous Sellsword.
It's a pretty low number of cards, right?
Yeah.
It's got to be.
And now with Fatal Push, I think Connor has that covered too.
Take Thoughtseize, take Bankbuster, take Fable. 2, 3. There's the land. Got to take the push. There you go. Connor Mackenzie may be a turn or two away from going to the World Championship. All right, Eric Gray. I don't know if there is a good deck here or a good draw here. Chapter 2. I mean, this is a really good start here for Eric, too. Oh, well.
There we go.
Well, that speaks volumes. That speaks volumes.
That is not great there.
Nope. Just adding Jangotha to hand. And now Connor is going to confidently attack in here for 7 points of damage. Going to go up to 9. Gray's going to fall down to 10. And that's probably all she wrote, folks.
I mean, Connor was just discarding the hand size. I think, Eric's outs there were really lean anyway.
I agree. If any at all. Once he found the fatal push, like you mentioned, that may have just been it.
Yes.
Yeah, that may have just been it. There's a Fable of the Mirror Breaker. As long as Connor keeps up the appropriate mana in a spot like this, I don't think it matters anymore anyway, because, again, Connor's at 9 now, not 2.
Yep.
So Atraxa is just too much to overcome. You're going to see this Saga transform, of course, into another copy of Etchings. But
Not to toot my own horn here, but
beep, beep.
you know what would have been lethal last turn?
Talk to me.
Vashino Pyromancer.
Okay, well,
Boom, shakalaka.
beep, 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 in the Jeep. It would have been an out at least. You are right. A great run here from Eric Gray with Rakdos aggro, to be sure, and came very close this game. This is exactly where you want to be as an aggro deck. You want to be on the play game 3.
Did the hard part.
Yep.
Sprig and serve game 1.
That's such a big deal in spots like this, especially when you're playing for a lot on the line. But just not able to find the black mana in time. And though his hand was rather functional, you see a Blood Crypt finally showing up to this party. Atraxa is just too much for a deck like Eric's once it's on the battlefield. And you can understand the disappointment. Doesn't want to concede the game, just going to finish out the game. And Connor Mackenzie is going to survey the battlefield just to make sure he doesn't do anything incorrect to close it out. So, Fable the Mirrorbreaker is going to go up to Chapter 2. Looks like a couple of cards ready to be discarded. A Transmogrify and a Bankbuster are headed to the bin. 2 new cards headed Connor's way. There's a Fountain Port. And there's a Duress, just to make sure there's no nonsense going on here, which I'm in favor of.
Well, 2 of the 3 cards in hand are already known.
Mm-hmm.
So we're seeing a turn inside out here. I believe the point of this is to force Mackenzie to take Claim Fame.
Okay, sure.
I don't know how much it matters here, but
I'm going to presume very little, but I could be wrong. Looks like we're going to have a response. And that'll be a Fatal Push on the Etchings. Now the Duress will resolve. Claim Fame down. Torch the tower all around. And looks like maybe even another removal spell, perhaps. Yep, Bitter Triumph. And finish everything off. Connor Mackenzie gonna win this game and match over Eric Gray. Rakdos Transmogrify. It's gonna take care of Rakdos aggro. And I'm laughing because
someone's got a cheering section.
Connor's got some friends over there and is pretty pumped up about him qualifying for the World Championships.